What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors faces a television host who refuses to show basic respect? In just 45 seconds, what started as a simple promotional interview would turn into one of the most memorable moments in morning television history. This is the story of when disrespect met dignity and dignity won. The studio lights were bright that morning. Denzel Washington sat across from Michael Strahan, relaxed in his chair, wearing a sharp navy suit. He was there to talk about his latest film, a passion project he had been working on for years. The cameras were rolling, the audience was watching, and everything seemed normal at first. Strahan opened with what should have been a simple question. So Denzel, you've got another movie coming out. Tell us what makes this one different from all the others. There was something in his tone, something dismissive, like he was already bored before Denzel could even answer. But Denzel, being the professional he is, smiled politely and began to explain. Well, this film is actually very personal to me. It's about a father trying to reconnect with his son after years apart. It explores themes of forgiveness, redemption, and... Strahan cut him off mid-sentence. Right. So basically another drama. You do a lot of those, don't you? The audience shifted uncomfortably. Denzel paused, his smile fading slightly. I do films that mean something, films that tell important stories. Strahan leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at his lips. Sure. But let me ask you something. Do you ever worry that maybe you're just doing the same thing over and over? I mean, how many serious movies can one guy make? You could feel the temperature in the room drop. Denzel's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. I think storytelling is about connecting with people. If the story matters, it's worth telling. Okay, but... Strahan interrupted again, waving his hand dismissively. Let's be honest here. When was the last time you did something actually fun? Something people actually want to watch? The disrespect was staggering. Here was Denzel Washington, a two-time Academy Award winner, a living legend who had given audiences some of the most powerful performances in cinema history, and he was being talked to like his work was irrelevant. Denzel took a slow breath. People do want to watch meaningful cinema. That's why I do what I do. Strahan laughed. Meaningful cinema. Okay, look, I'm just saying not everyone wants to sit through 2.5 hours of you looking sad and contemplative. Maybe try a comedy once in a while. Loosen up a little. The condescension was dripping from every word. Denzel sat forward slightly, his voice calm but firm. I've done comedies. I've done action films. I've done Shakespeare. I've spent 40 years building a career based on excellence and integrity. 40 years, Strahan repeated, his tone mocking. Exactly. 40 years of the same thing. Don't you think it's time to try something new? Or are you just comfortable being predictable? That word hung in the air. Predictable, said with such casual cruelty as if Denzel's entire body of work could be reduced to one dismissive adjective. Denzel's expression hardened. I don't think there's anything predictable about commitment to craft. Strahan wasn't backing down. He leaned forward, his voice taking on an edge. Come on, Denzel, you're a smart guy. You know what I'm saying. Every interview you talk about the art, the meaning, the importance. But maybe, just maybe, you take yourself a little too seriously. Maybe that's why younger audiences don't really connect with your stuff anymore. The insult was blatant. Now Strahan wasn't just questioning Denzel's work, he was questioning his relevance, his legacy, his place in modern cinema, and he was doing it with a smile on his face, like it was all just friendly banter. Denzel's voice dropped lower. Younger audiences connect just fine with quality. They're smarter than you're giving them credit for. Are they though? Strahan shot back. Because the box office numbers tell a different story. Your last few films, they didn't exactly light the world on fire, did they? This was crossing a line. Strahan was now openly mocking Denzel's recent work in front of millions of viewers with zero regard for professionalism or basic courtesy. Denzel sat perfectly still. Box office isn't the only measure of success. Strahan laughed again, that same dismissive chuckle. Of course it isn't. That's what everyone says when their movies don't make money. Look, I'm not trying to be harsh here. I'm just being real. Maybe it's time to admit that your time has kind of passed. The studio went silent. The crew members looked at each other in disbelief. Even the cameras seemed to pause, as if they couldn't believe what they were capturing. Denzel stared at Strahan for a long moment. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were sharp focused. My time has passed. It wasn't a question, it was him repeating the words, letting them sit there, exposing just how disrespectful they were. I mean, look, Strahan continued, apparently oblivious to the gravity of what he'd just said. You had a great run. No one's taking that away from you. But there's a new generation now. New actors, new stories, new energy. Maybe it's time to step aside and let them have their moment. You've had yours. Denzel's hands were folded in his lap. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't lost his temper. But something had shifted in his demeanor. There was a finality to his stillness. Let me ask you something, Michael, Denzel said quietly. How long have you been doing this? Hosting, I mean. Strahan looked confused by the question. I don't know, several years? Why? Several years. Denzel repeated. And in those several years, have you learned anything about respecting your guests? Strahan's smile faltered. Whoa, hey, I'm just having a conversation here. No, Denzel said, his voice still calm but with steel underneath. You're not having a conversation. You're performing. You're trying to get a reaction, trying to create a moment at my expense. That's not a conversation. That's disrespect. Strahan tried to recover. Come on, man. Don't be so sensitive. I'm just asking questions. Denzel said slowly. Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like you're trying to tear down someone who spent their entire life building something meaningful. And for what? For ratings. For clicks. The audience was dead silent. Every eye was on Denzel. This wasn't the blow-up Strahan might have been hoping for. This was something more powerful. Quiet dignity in the face of disrespect. Strahan shifted in his seat, starting to realize he'd pushed too far. Look, if I offended you, if you offended me. Denzel's eyebrows raised slightly. There's no F about it. You invited me here supposedly to talk about my work, and instead you've spent the last several minutes dismissing my career, mocking my choices, and suggesting I'm past my prime. That's not journalism. That's not even entertainment. That's just rude. Strahan tried to laugh it off. I think you're taking this a little too personally. How else should I take it? Denzel asked. You've made it very personal. You've questioned my relevance, my talent, my connection with audiences. You've done everything except actually ask me about the film I came here to discuss. Well, we can talk about the film now if you want, Strahan offered, trying to steer things back on track. Denzel shook his head slowly. No, I don't think so. Because I don't think you actually care about the film. I don't think you care about meaningful conversation at all. I think you care about creating drama and conflict because that's what you think makes good television. Strahan's face was reddening. Now that's not fair. Fair. Denzel's voice had an edge now. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair to invite someone onto your show and then ambush them with insults? Is it fair to use your platform to belittle someone's life's work? I wasn't belittling. Yes, you were. Denzel cut him off, the first time he'd interrupted. You absolutely were. And you know what? I've been in this business long enough to recognize when someone is trying to make themselves look big by making someone else look small. That's what this is. Strahan was losing control of the interview now. Denzel, I really think you're overreacting. Overreacting, Denzel repeated. He looked directly into the camera, then back at Strahan. I'm reacting appropriately to being disrespected on national television. Nobody disrespected you. Strahan protested weakly. You did. Denzel said simply. With every question, every comment, every dismissive laugh, you made it clear that you don't value me, my work, or my time. And you know what? That's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. But I'm also entitled to decide that I don't need to sit here and take it. Strahan's eyes widened slightly. What are you saying? Denzel stood up slowly, deliberately, with complete control. He reached up and removed the microphone clipped to his lapel. I'm saying that this interview is over. Wet. Hold on. Strahan stood too, his professional mask slipping completely. You can't just walk out. Yes, Denzel said calmly, and I am. But we're in the middle of a live broadcast, Strahan said, panic creeping into his voice. Denzel looked at him with something that might have been pity. Then I guess you'll have to figure out how to fill the time. Maybe use it to reflect on how you treat people. Strahan reached out as if to stop him. Denzel, come on. Don't do this. Denzel stepped back from the reach. I'm not doing anything. You did this. You created this situation with your questions, your attitude, your complete lack of professional courtesy. This is the consequence. The consequence. Strahan looked desperately at the cameras, at his producers, anywhere but at Denzel's steady gaze. Yes, Denzel said, actions have consequences. You can't treat people poorly and expect them to just sit there and take it. Not everyone will play along with your game. Strahan tried one more time. Look, if I came across wrong, I apologize. Can we just start over? Denzel paused, considering him. No, because an apology given only to save face isn't an apology. It's damage control. And I'm not interested in helping you control this damage. You made it. You deal with it. But Strahan was floundering now, completely out of his depth. There's no but, Denzel said firmly. This is done. I came here in good faith to talk about my film, to have a real conversation, to connect with the audience. Instead, I got disrespect disguised as humor. I got condescension disguised as honesty. I got insults disguised as questions. And I'm not going to reward that behavior by staying. He started to walk toward the edge of the set. The cameras followed him. The crew didn't know what to do. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't supposed to happen. Strahan called after him. You're really going to walk out just like that? Denzel stopped and turned back one final time, just like that. Because my dignity is worth more than your ratings. My self-respect is worth more than this appearance. And my time is worth more than sitting here being insulted by someone who clearly doesn't understand the first thing about respect. This is unprofessional, Strahan said, trying to regain some authority. Denzel almost smiled. What's unprofessional is how you conducted this interview. What I'm doing is setting a boundary. There's a difference. You're making me look bad, Strahan said and immediately regretted it. No, Denzel said quietly. You did that yourself. I'm just refusing to help you cover it up. Everything that happened here, every dismissive comment, every insulting question, that was all you. Own it. With that, Denzel Washington turned and walked off the set. His steps were measured, his head held high. He didn't storm off in anger. He didn't slam anything or shout. He simply left with the same dignity and grace he'd maintained throughout the entire confrontation. Behind him, Strahan stood in the middle of the set, frozen. The cameras were still rolling. The audience was still silent, and he had no idea what to say. One of the producers tried to signal for a commercial break, but the damage was done. The moment was captured. Denzel Washington, one of the greatest actors of his generation, had walked out of a live interview because he refused to be disrespected. Strahan finally found his voice. Well, that was unexpected. We're going to take a quick break. But nobody was listening anymore. The only thing anyone would remember from this interview was Denzel's quiet, powerful stand against disrespect. The way he calmly dismantled every insult. The way he refused to play the game. The way he valued himself enough to walk away. The lesson here isn't complicated. Treat people with respect, not because of their status or their fame or their achievements, but because they're people. Basic human decency isn't optional. It's not something you can skip in favor of creating drama or controversy. And when you do skip it, don't be surprised when people refuse to participate in your show. Denzel Washington didn't owe Michael Strahan his time. He didn't owe him patience with disrespect. He didn't owe him the opportunity to use his name and reputation for ratings. And when Strahan crossed the line from interview into insult, Denzel exercised his right to leave. That walkout wasn't about ego. It wasn't about being difficult or dramatic. It was about a man who has spent 4 decades earning respect, deciding that he wouldn't sit still while someone tried to take it away. It was about valuing yourself enough to say no to mistreatment, even when cameras are rolling and millions are watching. The most powerful part: Denzel never lost his cool. He never stooped to Strahan's level. He didn't insult back or try to hurt him the way he'd been hurt. He simply stated facts, set his boundary, and followed through. That's strength. That's class. That's what real dignity looks like. Denzel Washington walked off that set, but he walked away with something far more valuable than any interview could have given him. He walked away with his dignity intact, his self-respect uncompromised, and a perfect example of how to handle disrespect with grace and strength. And that's a lesson worth remembering. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply stand up, state your truth, and walk away from situations that don't serve you. That's not weakness, that's wisdom.